There we go. Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for coming to this event today. I don't know the reason that you're here, but the reason that I am here is there was a character that was introduced in a comic book back in 1973, and he later on appeared in a movie in 2018. You might remember this guy. That's why I'm here. If you recall that movie, he made this statement. He said, the universe is finite, its resources finite. If life is left unchecked, life will cease to exist. It needs correction. So where did Thanos get this ideology? Where did he get this ideology? Well, in 1972, a year earlier, the first book was published, Limits to Growth. In 1968, 4 years earlier, Paul Ehrlich from Stanford published The Population Bomb. I had to read both of these books when I was in 10th grade. And after I got through reading them, I came from a family of 6, and I looked at my parents, and it's like, you two are responsible for this world that's going to collapse. These ideas really came, I think, from this guy, Thomas Malthus. He writes a book in 1798 on the principle of population. In the book, he makes this argument. He said that food will increase at a arithmetic or linear rate. But population is going to increase at a geometric or exponential rate. And due to this gap, we're going to face a collapse on the planet. Well, there was a economist, obscure economist, but a brilliant economist that had read Ehrlich's book. And when he first read it, he said, you know, this kind of makes sense. I mean, the theory looks like it makes sense, but maybe what I should do is go back and look at the facts. What has happened since this publication of Malthus's book to the price of things? Now, as economists, quantities of things are interesting to us, but what's really important are prices, because prices reveal how scarce things are. So he began this research, and everywhere he looked at all kinds of things that had any kind of data on pricing, and what he discovered was that as population increased, that these prices had all gone down. How could that be possible? 1800, you got 1 billion people on the planet. When he began this research, there was 4 billion people on the planet. So how was this possible? How was this possible? And what he concluded is that, look, population is increasing, but food is increasing at a much faster rate, So he does all this research. He publishes his findings in the journal Science. Well, when Paul Ehrlich reads this, he goes ballistic. He's totally furious about someone who is kind of challenging his claims. So they go back and forth in this journal. Every month you see them go back and forth. I think it's very personal. And finally, Julian throws up his hands and says, Paul, why don't we just bet? Let's bet. You know, the beauty of being a professor is you never really have to be accountable for what you say. Is that true, Scott? You can get away with saying all kinds of things. And so Julian puts Ehrlich on the table. He says, pick any commodity, and I'll bet you it's going to be cheaper in the future. So they do this bet, and he let Paul pick the items. So Ehrlich picks 5 items: copper, chromium, nickel, tin, and tungsten, and they put a $1,000 bet on the table. And the bet he said, well, how long do you want to bet for? Paul said, let's bet for 10 years. So start the bet in 1980, goes to 1990. Put $1,000 on the table. So if it costs more than $1,000 adjusted for inflation, at the end of 10 years, then Simon's got to pay Ehrlich the difference. If it costs less, then Ehrlich's got to pay Simon. So what happened? Well, 1980s go along. In October of 1990, Julian goes out to his mailbox, and there's an envelope there with no return address. He opens it up. Behold, one of the most important checks ever written in economics. $576. The inflation-adjusted prices of these 5 commodities had fallen by 19%, by 36%. How is that possible? Now, the 1980s was also this decade where we recorded the highest growth in human population. We added 850 million people to the planet. So how is it that you could increase population by 19%, but these prices had dropped down by 36%? How is that possible? 19% increase, prices fall by 36%. Well, if something's on sale for 36% off, it means for the same price, now I can get 56% more, right? You get 56% more for the same price. So that relationship between the abundance, you get 56% more, there's 19% more people. What it suggests is every time you add another percent to the population, you get almost 3% more in abundance of these commodities. So, you ready for a quiz? Class, right? Got to have a quiz. How many keys are in a piano? Somebody's got an 88. 88, great. Congratulations, you get an A. Second question. How many songs are in a piano? Well, if you ask Thanos, he would say, well, there's 88 keys, there must be 88 songs, right? Well, he's actually wrong about this. There are no songs in the piano. The songs are all here, right? The songs are just the keys are just the atoms. The song is knowledge, and it's knowledge that transforms atoms into resources. Atoms by themselves have no economic value. It's when we add atoms to those that they become resources. We have the same, the difference between our age and the Stone Age is entirely due to the growth in knowledge. The Neanderthals had the same physical matter that we have today. What's the difference? It's knowledge. So the universe is finite. We do live on a planet with finite number of atoms, but resources are infinite because there does not appear to be any kind of bound on undiscovered knowledge. It's knowledge that allows us to transform poverty into prosperity. And what is the source of knowledge? Who discovers and creates knowledge? This was Julian's insight. It's human beings that are the ultimate resource, the ultimate resource. So we have three basic principles that we used to think about this, and we call it the new economics of human flourishing. The first is that wealth is knowledge. The second is that growth is learning. And the third is that money is time. And from these three propositions, we can derive a key theorem. We can measure the growth of knowledge with time. How do we do that? Well, when we buy things, we buy things with money, but we really pay for them with our time, which suggests that there are really two prices. There's the time price, the money price, which is expressed in dollars and cents, and the time price, which can be expressed in hours and minutes. It's very easy to translate a money price into a time price. It's simply how much did you pay for something divided by what is your hourly income. So, I'm used to talking to students, so let's talk about pizzas. If a pizza costs $20 and you're earning $20 an hour, how much did that pizza cost you in time? So it's 1 hour, the price was 1 hour or 60 minutes. Now, let's say tomorrow that the pizza price goes up to $22, but your income increases to $24. What's happened to the time price? Now it's only a 55-minute pizza. It's not a 60-minute pizza, so the time price has fallen by 8%. But if I took the same amount of time and work to buy a pizza, how much pizza would I get? I'd actually get about 9% more pizza, right? I have 5 minutes now that I could devote to it. So pizza abundance is increasing. Pizza abundance is increasing. It's the change in the time price over time that we really want to look at to measure our prosperity. So 2018, this movie comes out. A friend of mine, we're looking at this, we're kind of curious about the movie, and we ask ourselves, who would win this bet today, this famous bet between Simon and Ehrlich? Who would win it today? Now, there were two criticisms on this bet. One was it only was for 5 items, and the second was it only lasted 10 years. So what we did is we expanded that data set from 5 to 50. We went beyond just these 5 metals and added to it energy, food, materials, minerals, and metals. So we have crude oil, we have natural gas, we have wheat and barley and chicken and beef. We also have wood and cotton, and we also have all of these metals. Now, the World Bank keeps track of the prices of these commodities every month, so we have this beautiful way we could get the data, and we transform these all into time prices. Now, what do you think happened when we did this analysis from 1980 to 2018? We're looking at these 50 commodities. What do you think we discovered? Think about all of these commodities. We expected that some of them are probably going to be more expensive today than they were in 1980. What we found is not a single one of these had actually become more expensive in terms of the time price, how much time it takes people to earn the money to buy these things. In fact, what we found is that on the average, these prices had fallen by 75%. What does that mean? It means you walk into the store, instead of buying one, your money now gets you four. Your money now gets you four. So this is a little more than actually 75% from, we do this analysis every year. And we actually publish our results on Earth Day, April 22nd of every year. It's coming out next month. You'll see the new index. So you walk into the store, everything's 75% off. Would you be happy about that? Yeah, well, you go back to 1980 and compare life today, and everything is 75% off. On the average, some of these things are 90% off. So everybody's slice in this pizza is 4 times larger than it was in 1980. 4 times larger. Now, at the same time, global population increased by 75%. What's kind of interesting is every time you add a percent to the population, it looks like these prices go down by 1%. It's almost like, let's have a pizza party, and everybody you invite to the party, they come with their own pizza and pizza for everybody else. Would you want that person to come to your party? Yeah, it looks like you would want to do that. So once we kind of developed this, did this analysis on these 50 items, we thought, well, we've got this time price framework, well, let's go look at other things. So we began to look at other products. We looked at hundreds of different products and services. Let me just share a couple of the items that we found. If you go back to 1910 and pull out a Sears Roebuck catalog, some of you might remember that. Maybe not, there's kind of a young crowd here, but I remember it. And you go get back to 1910, pull out this catalog, you could buy a basic bicycle for $11.95 in 1910 from Sears. Was that a good deal? And the correct answer in economics is always, it depends. What's it depend on? Well, how much were people earning in 1910? Well, unskilled workers earning about 11 cents an hour. So it would take them 108 hours to work to earn the money to buy just one bicycle. Well, today you can buy a bicycle. When I looked at Walmart, they had one for $98 here a couple of years ago. And it had shocks, it's 21 speed. It's like, wow, that looks like a really good deal. Well, how good of a deal really is it? Well, if you compare that $98 to what people are earning today, just unskilled workers earning about $17 an hour. If you work 108 hours at $17 an hour, you can buy 18 bicycles today. So our bicycle abundance is dramatically increased. Grandpa, he got one bicycle, we get 18. Air conditioning. Anybody believe in air conditioning? Yeah, we're in Texas. We believe in air conditioning here. Well, in 1952, the cost to buy an air conditioner was $350. That seems like, well, it's not too bad. It was 1952. When we adjust for wages from 1952 to today, what do we note? Well, you can buy an air conditioner at Walmart for, I think it was $156, and it even comes with the remote and has a great warranty. So the time price for one air conditioner in 1952, you get 45 air conditioners today. So we've had this extreme abundance of air. This whole southern part of this country would not be possible without this innovation. Not only with the innovation, but the abundance of the innovation. And what have we done? We've taken these atoms and we've applied knowledge to them. We've arranged them in new ways that create this tremendous value for all of us. So another issue that we've kind of dealt with is climate. And a lot of people will say the reason I don't want to have children is I'm worried about the climate. Is that concern justified? Well, as economists, we're not so concerned about how much CO2 is in the atmosphere. What we're concerned about is what effect does that have on human life? What effect does it have on human life? Go back to 1920. So this is a chart that was developed by Bjorn Lomborg. And he went to the International Database of Disasters, and here's what he found. The number of climate-related disasters, the things that floods, droughts, storms, wildfires, things you could attribute to the climate. In the 1920s, you had about 475,000 people every year that died due to these climate conditions. You remember the population in 1922, much lower than it is today. Look at the dramatic drop in that, 97% drop. 97% drop. If you take every person, the 1920s, every person today that dies due to climate, if we adjust for population, there were 160 people that died in the 1920s. This is astonishing how human beings have been able to adapt and innovate around climate. Are we concerned about climate going forward? Is climate going to change? Yeah, probably. Do human beings contribute it? Yeah, probably. But is it an existential threat? I don't think so. Look at what we've done in the last 100 years with the technology that we had in the last 100 years. Going forward, it looks like we're going to be even better at doing this. Now, that's barring a catastrophic event, but it looks like climate should not be a reason to be worried about the future. We're here, we can turn the lights on, we can push a button, and we can stay cool and warm. We can do all of these things because we've transformed atoms into resources by discovering knowledge. Now, one thing that we also think about is life years, not just life, but life years. So we know in 1800 there were about 1 billion people on the planet, but they only lived to be about 28 and a half years old on the average. Average life expectancy was under 30. Well, way we can think about that is, let's draw a chart with life expectancy on one axis and population on the other axis. This little square here represents 1800. You had 1 billion people and they lived to be 28 and a half years, so you got 28.5 billion years, life years of life. Well, what's happened in the last 120 years? Well, we know that population's increased. Now we have over 8 billion people. Well, what else has happened? Life expectancy, we get 44 more years today. So the green box represents 2023, the red box is 1800. We've got 20 times more life years today than we did in 1800. How's that possible if we have this fixed amount of pie that you could add so many people? That was the kind of concern that I had, is how is this possible? How could Thanos and Ehrlich and Malthus be right? Well, they had theories, but they didn't have facts. Recently, Bernie Sanders tweeted out, there shouldn't be any billionaires. And I'm sorry to tell you, Bernie, but we're all billionaires now. And why is that? Well, here's a question for you. If someone spends $1 billion to create a product that we can all consume at the same time, what does that make each one of us? You don't have to have $1 billion to enjoy $1 billion. Before Gutenberg, 1439, if you wanted a book, an average book, took over 1,000 hours to write out. If you're paying somebody today's blue-collar average wage, it's about $38 an hour. It would cost you about $40,000 to acquire a book. Well, Google's got 10 million books now in their public domain file. To make a copy of all of those books, I can actually get hang on just a second. I can get a tablet and a memory stick for under $50. So we're like book billionaires. There's a book that you really want that you can't afford. Yeah, not really. Think of this. Everybody's walking around with one of these. You know, Apple spent $200 billion in the last, since the iPhone was introduced, and about half of that's gone to the iPhone development. They've got $100 billion invested in this thing, and you can get one today for what? Like $2 a day? We're all like iPhone billionaires. I love to ask my students, how much would I have to pay you to never ever use the iPhone and the internet again for the remainder of your life? I've never been able to get a student willing to sell me that option for less than $5 million. So you're walking around with something that's worth $100 billion, that cost $100 billion to develop, and you spend $2 a day to do it for your phone and your access plan? It's like 3 to 5 minutes a day of work to be able to have this. We're all billionaires when it comes to this. We think about new drugs. It costs over $1 billion typically to get a new drug approved today. But once it's approved, once you've developed it, what's it cost to make a copy of that drug? Once you've discovered the new knowledge, what's it cost to make a copy of the knowledge? It kind of approaches zero. And why is it that we can enjoy these drugs? Why is it that things that are so expensive are so cheap? Why is that? The reason is that there are so many of us. There are so many of us. You know, if I'm going to spend $1 billion to create something, and there's 1 billion people, and they all want to buy it, what do I have to charge them to get my money back? I can charge them $1. So we all get this benefit of this knowledge. We can all consume it at the same time, this knowledge at the same time. Because why? Because there are so many of us on the planet. All right, this high development cost. We've got lots of things that have a very high development cost, but the per unit cost after that's very low because it's really knowledge that we are discovering. Knowledge has this beautiful feature. When you discover knowledge and you share it with somebody, if I share with you my Snickers bar, I lose half of it and you get the other half. When I share my knowledge, knowledge doubles. Jordan Peterson made this interesting observation. He said, when you discover how to do something twice as fast, you've doubled your knowledge. You've doubled your knowledge. It's that growth in knowledge that lifts us out of poverty. And who's capable of discovering and creating knowledge? Every human being on the planet is capable of doing that. So in conclusion, back to my parents. When I think about them, they weren't responsible for the world's demise. Parents are responsible for the world's prosperity because they are creating the most valuable thing on the planet. The most valuable thing that we can do in our lives really is to create more life. Thank you very much.